Yes, it's the hardest part of wildlife photography, birds. And the more you get into wildlife photography, the more you'll seek out a challenge and inevitably end up trying out bird photography. You'll realize it's different from photographing static, large mammals, and it needs a different approach. That's what this video is for, to give you a checklist of things to remember when you're out in the field, to get your thought process into professional mode. A cheat sheet in video form. In addition to camera settings, I'll tell you which factors to take into account and what to avoid, how to anticipate flight, how to compose a photo, and other valuable tips and tricks I've learned over the years. I'm Danielle, I'm a professional wildlife photographer in Africa, from Africa, and I lead photo safaris throughout my beautiful home continent for photographers of all skill levels. So you're into birds. Well done. Now you need to make sure your keeper rate increases. As I mentioned, this video is more of a quick-fire cheat sheet than an in-depth technical tutorial. However, I'm a firm believer in mastering the technical side of photography before you can delve into the creative. It's based on birds in Africa, so it might differ slightly from your area, but the principles remain the same. So let's start with camera settings. Camera mode, any mode in which you can set your shutter speed. So either full manual, shutter priority, or manual with auto ISO. Shutter speed is a make or break setting for birds, and I'll talk about specific speeds in just a moment. Aperture. To be honest, I don't fret too much about aperture out in the field, but I do keep it in mind. Generally, somewhere between f5.6 and f8 is good. I rarely go above f8 because too much light gets lost. Your choice of aperture depends on a few factors. Bird size. Larger birds often need a larger aperture because their different parts are further apart. However, I'm also fine with getting the head in focus and having the wings out of focus. It's up to personal preference. Movement. You can get away with a larger aperture for static birds. If you're going for the takeoff shot, a smaller aperture is a safer bet because you give yourself a bit of leeway for depth of field. Note that I'm talking about actual aperture, not the F number. Distance from the camera. The closer the bird, the more shallow the depth of field and the more tricky it gets to get accurate focus on the part that you want sharp. Check out my video on factors affecting depth of field to get a better understanding of this concept together with the next one. Background. The further the background, the more it blurs. A background that's very close to the bird will be distracting, in which case you'd need to open up your aperture to separate the subject from the background. I love prime lenses and the effect they have, and low f-stops. However, if the background is too blurry, you lose a sense of place and the bird isn't connected to its environment. You lose the story. It's fine to have these shots in your portfolio, don't get me wrong, but don't take every photo that way. Personally, I like to choose a midway in terms of background. In summary, a larger aperture for distracting backgrounds, a smaller aperture for including a little bit of the environment. When you're waiting for a bird to fly onto a perch from behind and you've pre-focused on the perch, use a smaller aperture to widen your depth of field. Then the most obvious one that trumps all of the ones above, light. Often with birds we don't have a choice but to use our largest aperture, because our high shutter speeds don't allow much light into the camera. If you're finding these tips useful, remember to subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get notified of our latest video releases. Now onto the third setting, and probably the most important, shutter speed. Here's a quick guide to shutter speeds for birds. Birds that are sitting and not expected to fly, 3/20th to 500th of a second. Birds that are moving slowly, like walking, 6/40th to 800th of a second. Birds moving faster, like running after bugs, 1000 to 12/50th of a second. Larger birds in flight or slower flying birds, 2000 to 2500th of a second. Smaller birds or fast flying birds, 3200 to 4000th of a second. If I could, I'd have my shutter on 4000 always, but unfortunately the light rarely allows for this. As a rule of thumb, remember, the smaller the bird, the faster the shutter has to be. Hummingbirds, for example, often require 8000th of a second, or even more, if you want to freeze movement completely. Also keep in mind that the bird's body and its wings move at completely different speeds. So if you want the wingtip sharp, which I do like, then your shutter speed needs to be very high. Again, that comes down to personal preference. Some people don't mind blurry wingtips. Focus mode. Always on AFC or servo. Birds are moving and your focus needs to be active all the time. Burst mode. Definitely on. You want to capture the best moment and you won't be able to do that with only one photo at a time. Anything above 10 to 12 frames per second is ideal, in my opinion, depending on the speed of the bird and the action. Focus. If your camera has the ability to detect or track a subject, that's a nice to have, and it will definitely increase your keeper rate. However, you still need to keep the bird in the frame and put it where you want it to be with a little bit of cropping leeway. For this, I use a defined focus area. I use flexible zone coupled with subject detection, and you can have a look at how I set up my autofocus on the Canon R6 II in this video. Have a look at your camera focus options. You should have something similar called wide or zone, etc. It's great to have the camera assist you in tracking your subject. It really is a game changer. However, it's not fail-proof and you always need quick access to a static focus point that's in your full control. This can be a cluster or larger focus point for focusing on birds that are smaller in the frame, or a small single focus point to place on the eye of the bird. As long as you can control the placement of the focus point fully. Tracking might fail if there's something else moving in the frame, or if there's something between you and the bird. Metering mode. I suggest evaluative metering coupled with exposure compensation to get the exposure right. I'm not a fan of using spot metering or center weighted metering, but if that's your chosen mode, make sure that you know it well and that you're able to work around its challenges. Exposure compensation. If you're using evaluative metering like me, it's really important to fine-tune your exposure. Often, birds are in high contrast environments, and it's important that you favor the exposure of your subject in contrast to its environment, which might be much brighter or darker than the bird. More on that in this video about exposure compensation. Precapture. This is a great feature whereby the camera takes photos and stores them in a buffer before you press to shoot. It's handy to capture birds taking off specifically. It does use a lot of battery, but it's useful if, say, you're concentrating on only birds taking off for a morning. Now let's get to the exciting part. I'll be running you through do's and don'ts regarding background, composition, and behavior. First up, avoid back of bird images. Just don't do it. I so often see photographers photographing birds flying away, and there's really no reason for it. Find them before flight. Don't attempt to find and focus on a bird in flight right off the bat. It's tough for you, it's tough for the camera, and it's tough for your telephoto lens. So how do you know when it's going to fly? Anticipate flight. Yes, birds do fly into the wind. However, I find that it depends on how strong the wind is and on the size of the bird. Smaller birds tend to fly off in any direction unless there is a really strong wind. Other behaviors that'll help you to anticipate takeoff is when the bird crouches or bows briefly, so you have to be quick. It's quite brief. Again, this I find is more large bird behavior in my experience. The best advice in anticipating behavior is to observe your subject. Notice repeat behavior, favorite spots, average time spent drinking before taking off, activity nearby like an elephant coming to chase it away or a buffalo grazing towards the bird. Study the flight habits of the particular bird. Some fly up, some fly down, some perform hawking where they return to the same perch after hunting. Pay attention to these habits and it'll instantly make you a better bird photographer. I also tend to look at the direction in which the bird is intently looking. It's often quite reliable to guess where it'll fly to. Then there's the apparent poop rule, where you'll hear photographers shouting, "Oh, the bird just pooped, it's gonna fly." From my experience, this isn't reliable at all. Maybe 30% of the time, sorry. Choose interesting backgrounds. A blank sky behind your bird doesn't add to the story at all. It doesn't give the viewer an idea of the bird's habitat, and it makes exposure increasingly difficult. Change your position if you need to. Try to capture the bird while it's still low with an interesting background behind it. Remember, not too blurry and not too distracting. Somewhere midway. Which brings me to the next point. Be on eye level. But how? If the bird's on the ground, get down. If they're way up in the tree, either climb the tree or don't take the photo. I sound like a broken record, but this is where a photo hide is incredible. You get to take photos of birds at eye level where they're completely relaxed because you didn't spook them when you approached them. Capture behavior. Be patient and you'll get interesting behavior photos instead of portraits. Wait patiently for the bird to catch its prey or interact with another bird or for it to fly across the background that you've envisioned already. Behavior makes for unique images, and unique images come from a combination of patience and taking calculated risks. Choose the right time of day. Early mornings are best. Birds are most active and light is beautiful. Late afternoon might also work, but midday is a hard no. Composition. Make sure the bird isn't flying out of the frame and it has space to move or look into the frame. When you're anticipating flight, keep its wingspan in mind and frame for it to avoid clipping its wings. I often place it bottom left if it's on the ground and I suspect it's going to fly up and right, for example, leaving space up and right of it. If you don't have tracking, place your focus point in the frame where you'd like the bird to be in the end photo, then frame the bird under the focus point and try and follow it as much as you can as it takes off. Get closer, zoom in camera, and don't rely on cropping later. This is probably the most common mistake I see photographers making. Zoom in all the way if necessary. You mostly won't be able to fill the frame with a bird, so make sure there are very few distractions in the frame. Compose intentionally. If you take the photo with the idea of cropping out 50% or more of it later, maybe reconsider whether you should take it. Lastly, a slightly odd one, but notice the nictitating membrane. It's a translucent third eyelid that protects the bird's eye. You'll see it when birds fight or when they dive into the water to hunt or when they're taking a bath. That's another reason for using high burst rates. You want to capture the eye without this membrane covering it, if possible. It's quite tricky. It's a small detail, but small details do matter. That's it, folks. Now it's time to get out there and apply these tips in the field. Be patient with yourself and enjoy watching your bird photography improve. Until next time, keep well. Bye-bye.